Should be on now. I'm Joel Kreisman, author of the Para Imperium sci-fi setting and the urban fantasy webcomic Joanna Ghost Hunter, and a couple of one-shot superhero stories, as well as a few core universe stories. And today I'll be presenting how to build a universe around superheroes and villains, of course. Okay. For the purposes of this panel, we'll be focusing on three questions. How do you become super in your setting? How many superheroes and or villains are there? And how does society treat them? Each of these questions feeds into each other. So we're going in order in that order. A lot of superhero stories start in universes that basically look like the real world, but with some slight changes, notably the existence of superpowered individuals and maybe furries. But now we're starting with super origins because it tends to inform the other two questions. If your superpowers come from lab accidents, there's going to be far fewer supers than if an alien virus was responsible. And the general public will typically be more accepting of a guy in a mech suit than a mutant. A lot of early superheroes got their powers from exposure to exotic chemicals or radiation, as those were the hot sciences of the time. More recently, a number of those heroes have been retconned to get their powers from genetic engineering or even nanotechnology. But there were also a number of gadgeteers and martial artists back in the early days. Possibly more than those with actual superpowers as you'd define them today. As well as a friendly alien or two. Later on, completely random natural mutations were added. And then there's magic, which has already been done to death by Brandon Sanderson and every other world builder under the sun. So we'll just gloss over that now. Now, if your superpowers are easily replicated, you might run into the Reed Richards problem. If some billionaire is flying around in powered armor, you can reasonably expect similar suits to be worn by soldiers, police, even construction workers. While if someone's DNA gets spliced with cat genes, you can bet that furries will be attempting to reverse engineer it within seconds of it hitting the news. We tend to be a pretty brainy bunch, us furries, don't we? Now, the proliferation of technological superpowers can make a great story, but if you want a world close to reality, you need a reason why your superpower source can't be replicated. Which leads conveniently into the second big question. How many supers? You can have anywhere from a single powered individual on the entire planet to a double-digit percentage of the population. But keep in mind that the more supers there are, the more they shape the setting. A world where there's only one or two hero-villain pairs per major metropolitan area might be almost indistinguishable from the real world, while one where even just 1% of the population has powers will be dramatically different. To say nothing of the rare setting, MHA, where the majority are superpowered. Now, once you've decided how people get superpowers in your world and how many people have them, you have to decide how the rest of society reacts to them. One Superman or Fantastic Four can easily be known by the entire world, and the authorities can deal with them on an ad hoc basis. But if supers become a significant demographic, people will start to make generalizations about them and fear or adore supers as a group, regardless of individual actions. Social movements, even religions, will arise both to demonize and beatify supers as a whole. The authorities will likely create institutions to deal with the superpowered. The only question is whether they do it before or after a popular movement demands it. These institutions may require supers to register with the government, deputize them into the police or military, regulate power sources, or even attempt to exterminate them outright. Recently, we're seeing a lot of superheroes who are somehow aligned with the government, especially in the MCU. That's it. Yes. Now, on the other hand, you might have supers trying to take over the world. That's a pretty common in supervillain plot, but occasionally you might see a hero run for public office as well. And this actually goes back a long time. There's plenty of myths with super or powered mythological kings. Things like Arthur of England, Theseus of Athens, Gilgamesh, Sumeria. And another possibility is the post-apocalyptic setting where the old social order has broken down and communities coalesce around super-powered protectors or warlords. And honestly, a lot of the older mythical kings with powers stem from similar or post-collapse eras of history, like King Arthur's obviously in the Dark Age after Rome withdrew from Britannia, while Greek mythology seems to come out of the Greek Dark Age that was after the Bronze Age collapse. So, again, when there's no centralized state to suppress or co opt supers, they seem to have this tendency towards rulership. At least in fiction, we, we are shockingly bereft of examples of real confirmed humans with superpowers. Though witch hunts might serve as a model for how people might react to those with special powers. Even though, and I'm saying this as a practicing witch myself, there are almost certainly no witches with anything that could qualify as superpowers. Still, fear of people suspected to have strange abilities has been commonplace throughout history. However, most scholars agree that the point of witch hunts wasn't actually getting rid of witches, but persecuting nonconformists who threatened the local regime's authority. They were a method of enforcing compliance, which might be why the worst witch hunts have been during empire building eras such as the late medieval period and the Renaissance, culminating, in the West at least, with the Salem witch trials during the colonization of North America. Now we seem to have enough time for a side tangent on shared universes. When you've got multiple writers working in the same world, they can have many different ideas on world building. It can be helpful to explicitly spell out the status of supers in a shared document or world Bible, so everyone's stories don't trip over each other. For instance, you might consider establishing a legal or illegal organization of supers in the universe as a shared touchstone for the writers, which will provide an avenue for introducing new characters, set the tone, and establish the role and status of supers, whatever that may be. For instance, the Core universe, created by Karen King, but with several other authors writing in their own stories and in the setting, including a few novels that have been published by Fur Planet, as shown here. The Core universe is a organization of queer supervillains fighting a dystopian conservative world of fighting conservative superheroes backed by various state and corporate interests, such as the Provincial Heroes League of Canada and the Bradley Group south of the border in the States. The Core, as established by Karen, was created sometime around World War II, which was when supers started to become prominent, but they've existed for at least 6,000 years in some form or another. There are also many different sources of superpowers in the Core universe, but the majority get their powers from their genes. Specifically, genes they inherited from this guy. So, in short, you should build your world to fit the kind of story you want, but keep in mind that certain in worlds will fit different types of story. If you want to write about a plucky vigilante fighting criminals, that works best with fewer and newer supers. But if you'd like to write a dark dystopia about corrupt superheroes, it would be best for them to have some kind of government backing. If you want to write about resisting an anti-super power, our government, have a government agency that actively persecutes the superpowered. Well, I think it's time. I think I can open to questions now. Stormy Dragon wrote, Shudder's realizing in a few years we're going to have LLM-based superheroes DX. Well, hopefully the LLM bubble will burst before any of those are published. But honestly, I've written a story about a superhero that had an AI in her head. That Horizon salvaged heroes, and part of my Para-Imperium setting. She's a cybernetically enhanced heroine in a post-apocalyptic space setting, and part of her implants include an AI that tries to get her to follow the directives of the falling empire that created her implants. And it's as part of a super soldier program. I try to present it as kind of a deal with the devil thing. Okay, how would you from Peppermint Fleck, how would you tackle writing a superpowered world for a non-superhero protagonist? Well, that's a good question. Well, what kind of role do you want the non-superhero protagonist to have? Are they like a fan who follows a known superhero, or do they want to be a superhero? Oh, wait, no, that's MHA. At first. Well, you could have. Well, let's see. You could. Right. Well, if you're writing about the emergence of superheroes from a non-superhero's perspective, it might it might be useful to have a new and rare superheroes universe. Vozel suggested random civilian that got their apartment destroyed during a super fight. Well, okay, that would. Okay, that also that also varies. I mean, a setting with established and numerous supers might have superhero insurance, provided that gift from Powerpuff Girls with the insurance salesman who says, "I am a very busy man." Yeah. uh, well, well, if superheroes just showed up, it'll some random civilian whose apartment got destroyed might have their life ruined and try to and who knows, they might wind up seeking some kind of recompense from the supers responsible, or hey, oh, Dot Fox has works about a hospital ward dedicated to dealing with strange power injuries. That sounds cool. Send me a link. Heck, did they watch some TikToks that are like Gotham FYP or Star City FYP that are set to like non-superpowered civilians discussing, "Oh, Superman threw my car at Bizarro today, so I guess I am late to work again." Yeah, that kind of indifferent. Yeah, that kind of jaded indifference. I think I saw. Yeah, I think there was. There was this office on TV. It was Empowered or something. I can't remember what it was called, but it was set in DC and was a subsidiary of Wayne Industries that marketed stuff for helping civilians get out of the way of super fights. Powerless. Thank you, Ash Cat. That was it. Oh, and Doc Fox's work is called Esoteric Care Unit. Cool name. Okay. Any other questions or suggestions? Damage control in the Marvel universe. Yeah, I think I heard of that before. like the super or hero insurance thing. Oh. Oh dear. I've also added, I also gave thought to civilians who were kidnapped by villains for those your love or the people choices. Like, goddamn, why me and how am I going to get out of this? Because no way Super Dork is rescuing my ass. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's it. Yeah, no. Contrasting the ideal versus the personal. Yeah, that's okay. Sets itself up for a number of revenge plots against both the hero and villain. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but how do you keep that from turning into a origin story for a new hero or villain? Yeah. I suppose I could talk a bit about my own superhero hero writing, which was kind of as a variety of different stages and levels of proliferation. Hmm. Um, okay, so the one I mentioned before, Horizon Salvaged Heroes, that is a post-apocalyptic setting after the collapse of an interstellar empire of furries. Actually, the same universe as the RPG I just put out, Scavenger Caches and Prizes. Where's he? Yeah. And it's now in Horizon, the protagonists were attempting to salvage a starship that came in from a still present remnant of the old empire that was planning an invasion and using locally recruited super soldiers, but got wrecked. And the automated systems implanted them with nanotech, giving them enhanced strength and brain-computer interfaces. And in Horizon's case specifically, the ability to take a lot of punishment and enhanced reflexes for piloting in fighters. And an AI that to help them learn how to use their implants as well as keep them in line, which she has some disagreements with. There's only as of the last chapter I wrote, there's only a half dozen individuals with those particular super soldier implants at the time, but the nanites are slightly contagious and slowly converting more people who, for instance, Horizons attempted to help some civilians who got caught in the middle of her fights by transfusing some of her regenerative nanites to them when they and one of the corporate governments in the star system is trying to steal her nanites, actually, so they could make their own soldiers. I've also written a few stories in the horror universe, such as Ev's story here. She's amnesiac and woke up in a empty tor base, which is under siege by some of the local superheroes, and there are some experiments have gotten loose from the labs in the base. So it's kind of a dungeon crawl, kind of a base defense. It's a things. What else do I have? Do I have anything else in here? Yeah. It's that Orzan is an established setting with lots of superheroes and villains, and most but not all of the heroes are corrupt or at least conservative. And there's also and I've also got kind of vor fetish superhero hero one shot that kind of that's set in the days right after super or hero superpowers emerge and the chaos that results. So, and that now, okay, let's see what else do we. Yeah. Also did a. Let's see. I also have a couple of other one-shot horror stories. Did anyone else have any questions? Thinking. Mm. Uh, uh, oh, hmm. Okay, Doc Fox suggests there's probably also a lot of room in superhero world building to play with tropes as you like. One cynical series I've read part of has a plot device character who basically exists to enforce tropes with behind the scenes intervention. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true. Well, so when writing, how much setting is really required? Like, if a story takes place in an Arctic hero training base, do we really need to outline the rest of the world, or do we just write what we need? Well, a lot of training stories seem to involve characters discussing their background before they started training, might it might be helpful to outline the rest of the world, or at least the parts of the world the characters came from. Hmm. Dot Fox. E.g., unless there's passive durability buffs, why aren't more supers getting shot? Lots of backstage manipulation to push guns out of cape culture and even government response to capes. Yeah, I remember how Batman used to use a gun way back in the 40s, and later he was saying guns are not our tools, they are the tool of the enemy. Yeah. Okay. Hmm. Well. Yeah. Well. Well. Yeah. You could have passive durability buffs, or well, Japan. Yeah. I know that. Yeah. Or stronger anti-gun regulations, and or 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 proportionate response that considers super or powers less serious than someone with a gun. Uh, that might depend on the superpower. Like someone with laser vision, it is basically a living gun. Yeah. Well, so even still, many supers have some kind of projectile they can launch from their hand. So one failed dodge, you've been shot by lightning, acid, psionic bolts, physical darkness, and omega beam. Come to think of it, I think a lot of core characters have get subdermal cybernetic armor after they join the core. Yeah, yeah. So I guess guns wouldn't be of much use against your typical core villain, and they don't want and they the core is actively trying not to escalate things too far with the super cops. Yeah, Stormy Dragon comment about gun culture becoming more artisan. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It has become harder to use guns prominently without being seen as implicitly endorsing one party or the other. Also adds that she'd like to think there's a widespread misconception that supers are just generally stronger, even with people with D grade powers. That's probably fair. So they're thought of as being able to just shrug off bullets anyway. Yeah, that could work. Mm, I don't. I have still got about half an hour before I need to leave for work. So, anything else? Uh, hmm. Storm. Army Dragon says, like, if the first Iron Man movie came out today, there would be an outroar that Tony rejecting weapons manufacturing was woke liberalism and Disney doesn't want to take political stances in their movie. I'm honestly surprised there wasn't when it came out. Oh, I'm honestly. I mean, I guess the. I mean, yeah, gun politics were pretty partisan in back in the early 2000s, but though I suppose it was the terminally online weren't calling everything they don't like woke as much back then. So again, okay, so what about the science tier of the setting? Like, for some reason there's mad scientists who are able to do outrageous things with garage equipment. How do we rationalize the mad geniuses of the setting? Well, yeah, Reed Richards is useless. I think the writers said that he gets paid by the industries his inventions would make obsolete to not, in order to not patent his inventions. Yeah, that's kind of lame. On yeah, though with a though lately I've been seeing a lot. Lately, I've been seeing a lot more things with supernatural mad scientists who whose devices only work because they personally built them and no one else can replicate them for some reason. Either because they lack the spark of genius or the mad scientist is actually a wizard who's reality warping is unconscious. Yeah. Yeah, 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 DocBot's another possibility for mad scientists is that the strange slash unusual materials are hard to procure for anyone else. That would that could explain it for. Eh. Okay, yeah. Peppermint Inked Fleck adds that I suppose it can also be that, if you can do more mad garbage science if the dumpsters you're diving through for tech are ones of superhero adjacent companies. Yeah, I guess that's a possibility too, though. Oh, you'd be wondering why those companies are throwing away valuable materials instead of recycling them. The Adrian Toombs route, I'm not familiar with that one. Vulture, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Vulture. The guy who in the MCU stole all Alien and other technology from Tony Stark's cleanup government agency. Yeah, yeah, I suppose that would be an incredible running joke for someone explaining their math. Where's that? On the one hand, he's a little guy, good stick to the man energy. On the other hand, arms dealing gangster willing to sell to anyone. Surprised no one else thought of this before. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, we've got about, looks like 7 minutes. Okay. Narek, I'm a little behind, but RE subdermal armor, it wouldn't make an agent fully bullet resistant. They'd mainly just have a higher threshold of staying power when being shot upon you. Well, yeah. Well, Horizon has subdermal armor and regenerative nanites, while Lev has subdermal armor, and I put the damage she's taking as an explanation for her exposed cybernetics. Yeah. Yeah, it would. Yeah, Vosel, it would hurt like hell to get hit with subdermal armor. Yeah. And need. Mm-hmm. Peppermint milk, peppermint fleck. Well, maybe they're not leaving it out in the open garbage, but A, when have ever people followed proper disposal protocols, and B, like, that's gonna stop you from picking through interesting discarded super stuff. Yeah, that is gonna bruise Doc. Got about 5 minutes left. Yep, exactly. What's Vosol asks, what's your favorite setting to take inspiration from? Not sure which settings I favorite to take inspiration from. Honestly, I haven't kept up with the mainstream Marvel and DC comics for a while. MCU, of course, is interesting. Watchmen was a pretty good one, even if the majority of heroes in that setting were not superpowered, just vigilantes and then cops in costumes. Eesh, that didn't age well. Especially the TV series didn't age well. Yeah. Uh, mm, yeah, Werb. Werb is a bit too dark for my tastes. Yeah. And okay, I guess the core is would be could be one of my favorite settings to get inspirations from. The and yeah, the webcomic girl power was that's been a pretty interesting example of a government, specifically military area run and superhero agency. Okay, we've only got a couple minutes left now. Okay. You're welcome, Vosel, or the lecture, and well, if you want to check out my books and comics, you can look up Joel Kreisman and I'm on Amazon, since you kind of have to be as a indie author, and Smashwords. Drive Through Fiction, Drive Through RPG, Itch, Ko-Fi, and well, just about every, and most of the furry gallery sites except Ink Bunny. Nope. I'm mostly active on Fur Affinity and Blue Sky these days. Looks like time's up. Bye.